Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Strafford Regional Planning Commission Policy Committee meeting, Friday, March 15, 2013. We'll start off with introductions. Marilyn, you want to start?
Oh, Marilyn with Strafford Regional Planning Commission.
Connor, Semblesworth.
Ken Ortman, City of Rochester.
Ed Comeau, Brookfield.
Ron Davidson, Hampshire DOT.
Victoria
from Barrington.
Gassis from Dover. Victoria Parmley, Northwood.
Dan Camara, Strafford Regional Planning.
Mark Ambrosi, Strafford Regional Planning.
Cynthia Copeland, Strafford Regional Planning.
Steve Brown, Wakefield.
Bob Jaffin, Rochester.
Paul Lockwood, New Hampshire DES.
Tom Clark, Dover.
Tom Crosby, Mabry.
Sandy Keynes, Rochester.
Brian Tapscott, Somersworth. And do we have any?
Greg Jones, SRPC.
Wayne.
Wait, Radman's is chair up here.
Okay. We have one public hearing for 3 items, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, which are the Unified 2014-15 Unified Planning Work Program Scope of Work and Budget, the 2013 to 2016 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment 1, and lastly the fiscal year 2015 through 2024 New Hampshire 10-year plan scoring criteria. And let's see, we have someone that's going to be, Mark, going to be addressing the Unified Planning Work Program, scope of work. Go ahead.
I guess one point of clarification before I begin. That last public hearing item, 4.4 for the 10-year plan scoring criteria, it's actually just an action item. It's not we don't need a public hearing on that item. That was a typo on our part. I apologize for that. So getting right into it, the Strafford TAC Committee made the recommendation for approval of the 2014-2015 Unified Planning Work Program. This document outlines our scope of work for the next 2-year period, so 2014, fiscal year 2014 begins on July 1st of this year, and then 2015. The document, as we've reviewed it a couple of times now, it hasn't changed a whole lot. We've made a few changes to comply with the new Federal Transportation Bill, MAP 21, in the body of the document and the text at the beginning. And just skipping ahead in the document a little bit to our scope of work. There have not been huge changes to our scope of work at this point. We found that our last Unified Planning Work Program worked very well. We have made a few tweaks to it to either allow us to do a few more things. I'll put rail in there as one thing that we didn't have in our last one initially, and also connectivity to ports and airports, along with a few other things. But I'm just going to run through this quickly. I'm going to note any changes. If there are questions about any of these categories or tasks as we go down, please stop me and we can go into those. So in category 100, this is primarily our administration. Task 101, invoices, accounting, audits, and reports. This is really just to report on the funding we've spent throughout the course of the contract. Moving along, 102, program administration. It's not changed a whole lot. We do have a new category or a subtask, 102.4, which is a task that basically is for certifications, being compliant with federal regulations, and reporting when appropriate. Task 102.4 includes things like our annual MPO certification we need to do with our transportation improvement program, things like that. Another change is in 102.2. Request was made that we include somewhere in there a UPWP midterm report with New Hampshire DOT. This is something that began, I think this year may be the first time that I've done it. It may be something that we just skipped in the past, or we didn't have time to complete in the past. I'm not entirely sure about that. Moving along, nothing else has really changed here. Performance measures has been expanded somewhat, and this 105 is primarily our reporting for performance measures. And just to give a little background, performance measures are to be established and moving ahead for progress in the 21st century. They have not been agreed to yet at the federal level, so we haven't had those handed down, but this is really in there for once they become handed down, so that we can fulfill our reporting requirements once we know what they are. Moving along to the 200 category, this is primarily focused on our federal requirements and federal documents that we need to complete over the course of our planning cycle here. Task 202 changed slightly to include economic development. We thought this was important. We have a lot of economic development going on within the region, and it certainly has a tie to transportation, so we wanted to address that in this UPWP. We have also included some of the sustainability activities that we'll be doing, including grant state futures, and some of the other activities. Scenario planning, I believe, is also included in there at some level. Moving down, nothing has really changed as you move down through Transportation Planner Collaborative, interagency consultation. Transportation Improvement Program, we've removed financial constraint because we've realized that's not a necessary thing. It's really part of an update to that document.
So it's put in the category 210.
Yeah, well, the financial constraint would be in the development of our next Transportation Improvement Program. That would just be a component of that development. Our air quality conformity requirements are not as stringent as they were in the past, but we've kept this task in here because it's still something we need to monitor and pay attention to. We're going to keep our model up to date, even though we received a new status, which is, Paul, maybe you can define our status better. I'm still a little bit foggy on it. We're in attainment now, or a maintenance area?
Yeah, we are in attainment with the ozone standards right now. The conformity requirements don't go away until July 20th, but we then move into what's called a maintenance area, which means that basically all the environmental projects to reduce emissions still have to be carried on basically for the next 10 years, which is the length of the maintenance period. So while you don't necessarily have to do conformity analyses, there's still requirements for modeling, travel demand model, and air quality analyses.
In task 210, we're doing a full update of our metropolitan transportation plan, and that's we have noted within that task that is a collaborative effort. I guess we're building off of the work that's being done with the Granite State Futures project. So I just wanted to note that that's one change in the scope of work from before we included Granite State Futures in it.
Mark, Bill's got a question.
On the 201, point 1, the Gasset.
Yep.
We're going to have the council member from this district come down and give a presentation. Listen, would the executive director be presenting our case before the Gasset, or would members of staff?
Yes, we always do.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think we're now in 4 districts. And we're really split up now.
Yeah, so we have a little part of all the different governor or council regions, I guess, within the state.
Can you explain a little bit of that process for the public?
Yeah. The Gasset hearings is made up of governor and council members. There are 5 of them in New Hampshire. They represent 5 different regions within the state. They're pretty big, and the regions themselves are kind of broken up in a kind of strange way, if I remember correctly, one of our regions basically follows the Route 4 corridor but goes east to west from eastern to western side of New Hampshire. There's a large section that Councilor Burton represents in the North Country. There's a lot of communities in that. And there are 2 or 3 others that touch a part of our region. And basically, the GASIT is the Governor's Advisory Council on Intermodal Transportation. This is the committee that reviews the statewide 10-year transportation plan, or projects list that DOT, the regions, and the communities put forward. They make some revisions to the document on occasion in the GASIT hearings, and then they would approve it after they've made their changes and send it to the governor. Basically, GASIT usually starts, the hearings usually start in the fall, probably in September is when we're going to see the list of the public hearings. In the past, there have been, I believe, 25 to 30 public hearings held around the state. The public is encouraged to come and express their case, what they think the transportation needs are within each councilor's region. And the councilors listen to that feedback and they make changes to the draft 10-year plan where they see appropriate. So that's basically the process. We will be having a lot more information about that coming up in the fall. Basically, it's a process to identify those projects that New Hampshire has funding for, or plans to fund in the next 10-year period. And so that's the I guess emphasis of the 10-year planning process.
Bob?
I had discussions with Councilor Burton around Christmas time. There will be an attempt by the council to find a way to do something online and increase public participation. That hasn't been announced because there's nothing formal at this point in time.
That's great.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to move along through this. We were at Task 210. Metropolitan Transportation Plan. I was just discussing how there will be, or we are currently in the process of doing a full update overhaul to the Metro Plan. 211 has not changed. 212 is a new task. It was previously included as part of 210, but we thought we should split it out. This is the project portfolio or transportation project database. This is where we track all of the projects that we when we go out for project solicitation to communities, we get some feedback about what the important projects are, and we program them into our GIS database so that we can easily do analysis about these projects, do some preliminary feasibility analysis, gain a better understanding of the environmental or cultural impacts that the projects might have, really to expedite the process so that we're not, starting on paper, transferring it to a computer, transferring it back to paper, doing, a couple of extra steps. It's really to streamline the process.
And to provide more transparency.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to make it easier for communities, I think. Also, we can basically export our project information to a Google Earth file. And so anybody could just open the Google Earth file and be able to look at all the different projects in their community or within the region, click on them and get some project information about them. So it's going to make, I think it's going to make it easier for people to understand the projects we're doing and also visualize where these projects are and how they relate to the projects in the rest of the region. Category 300, the public involvement and coordination. This entire category has not changed significantly at all. We still have our TAC committee, our public participation plan, which we'll be updating this spring, or Maryland's almost done with it, I think, at this point. I think Wayne is also working on this document. We're including a few new things in it this year, including a lot of our, I guess, electronic media activities that we've taken on that were not included in the document in the past, and also our outreach events that we've been doing. Public outreach has not changed. Policy committee is we're all here today. It's the same thing as it's ever been. 306 is the big change. We changed it from 5 MPO coordination and by state MPO coordination to just MPO coordination, so that we can kind of have one umbrella task that takes care of all of those different things. It allows us to do that coordination along, you know, the I-95 corridor, let's say, or do that coordination for the B&M railroad that runs, you know, through our region, but not exclusively within our region. And SMPO representation has stayed the same. Category 400. There have not been too many changes to the first few tasks in this. I'll note that we've included scenario planning in 403, part of our GIS task. We've included scenario planning. I don't know what else to say about it at this point. We really haven't dug into how that's going to look, but I do know that's part of the Grand State Futures project. And if possible, we want to use some of those and leverage them for our metropolitan transportation plan, the scenarios, so that, you know, we can understand some of the alternative paths moving forward for our region. Continuing down, nothing's changed through 4.0. Yeah.
Ed?
The natural resource inventory, is that the collection of the inventories from the communities, master plan?
The natural resource inventory task is basically, what we have in the office is they're like mini natural resource inventories. It's a summary of how many wetlands, or acres of wetlands, acres of conservation land, typical information that you want to analyze when a new project is proposed. So if a new project gets proposed in, say, Brookfield, and there may be some environmental concerns, we could easily pull up that data, look at the project area, and see what environmental or cultural or historic impact might be happening with that project.
Is it coordinated from the master plans of those communities? Is that what they submit to you in order to add it to the layer?
Is that what they? No, it's basically all derived from GIS. It's all GIS information that we actually don't. It's the same information. So what's used in the master plans, the local master plans, is what we're using in-house here. So it's not. It wouldn't be Brookfield giving us the information to put into those NRIs, because it's the same information. We wouldn't need to go to you to get the information, because we already have it.
Oh, I just thought the towns forwarded the inventory information once they put it in their master plan. They forward it to you so you can add it to the GIS, and you're saying you don't do that.
No, we don't do that, because we don't need the comprehensive, full natural resources inventory like you would see in a typical master plan, something that's really comprehensive. We really just need to look at GIS data.
I think a lot of it's state level data also.
It is state or regional.
We're all using the same data. It all comes through Granite. So maybe you might want to say something about Granite.
Yeah.
We do have additional information that we create for communities, and we have that available to access if we're looking at a project, and we know that we have more particulars about wetlands because a specific study was done, or the town did an aquifer study, and we add that later in. And that's from the town. So it's multifaceted. There's the state level data that everyone has access to, and then we have specific data that we helped a town or a city create. Or there was a report done, and the town has given us access to that data. So it's pretty cooperative across the board.
So there is a direct avenue. The towns can make an inventory and they offer you the information for you to add it. That's
well, they have to meet the state standards.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, did I say that right?
Well, yeah, I think it really gets to the fact that we don't need to be looking at a formal natural resources inventory. That's not what these are. These are really just a compilation of environmental, like I said, environmental, cultural, GIS layers. So when we can pull up the project area that's being proposed, we can see what may or may not be affected.
Okay, thank you.
Can you tell me what the difference between inventory and index is on natural resources?
I cannot. Do we have the word index somewhere?
Well, in the RSA states index, so there's some confusion as to what the difference is between a natural resource index and a natural resource inventory. So I was just wondering if you know what the difference.
I do not personally know what the difference would be. Again, this is not a, maybe the wording is wrong here for this natural resources inventory. Like I said, it's not a complete natural resources inventory like you'd have at the municipal level. It's really a compilation of GIS data. It's a map that I use with a bunch of base layers on it, wetlands, conservation lands, etc., important farmland soils, in order to see what a project may or may not be impacting. So it's not a traditional natural resources inventory.
I think it's important to remember if you do have conservation land, like I know Dover, we had a lot of conservation land, and we did find that some of it was not updated on the GIS, so it is important for towns and cities to supply and enter that data into Granite so that there's accurate information available out there to the general public through that.
And thank you, Marcia. We really need that. It's important.
Maybe look 30. With DOT, we do something similar, but we have what we call planning level data, which I think maybe Dan's talking about, this high level data of what the area has for wetlands and natural cultural resources. But then we have project level data, which is more like the master plan, so it's very detailed. It's just two different levels of data sets. One's kind of at a planning level, and one's at a project detailed level. Is it something, Dan, about what you're talking about?
Yes.
That's something we do some of the DOT.
Yeah, exactly, and that's part of the reason why we do it. The Bureau of Environment at DOT will, if there's a new project being proposed, they'll send us a list of questions related to the environment, cultural, historical resources, so that having that map set up with all those data layers helps us to efficiently assess that and answer those questions for DOT.
All right, moving on. I'd just like to note the three new tasks within this category. Performance measures, data collection and analysis. Once again, referred to this in the 100 category. This is basically in our data collection area so that once these performance measures are handed down, we have somewhere that we are allowed to collect that data. We don't know what that is going to look like yet. We may not have to do anything to collect this data. It may already exist somewhere, but it's really provisional in case there are any new data collection efforts that we need to do to meet these performance measures reporting requirements. So this really gives us space for that data collection analysis.
Well, even if it's collected, it gives us the ability to personalize it for our region and whatever the measure is.
Yep. Moving down to 408, we've talked about this quite a bit in this past UPWP cycle, where we've done quite a bit of these activities within the last UPWP cycle. We want to formalize it this time because we believe these are valuable data collection efforts, and we want to identify them. So within that category is our regional culvert assessments, which I think everybody's familiar with. A regional sidewalk inventory, which we developed. We're still in the process of developing our methodology and procedure document, but we have pretty much a regional sidewalk inventory squared away about how we want to do that. We'd like to pursue that in the future for communities that are interested. We did an access point inventory that Greg Jones is currently collaborating with New Hampshire DOT District 6 on. And we wanted to put a provision in there for any other transportation and infrastructure inventories. that may come up if communities have requests for specific things. We will be able to approach them through that data collection effort through this task. And the last thing we have here is the transportation micro-simulation modeling. We got software, or required software called Synchro last year, and the software is really based on project level modeling. So if you have one or two intersections in your community and you'd like to, I guess, review some of the alternative scenarios for changing up intersection alignment, maybe putting in a roundabout rather than a typical standard or signalized intersection, we can go and run some models, build a model, and see what it spits out. And it just gives us more information before making a decision about things, understanding how the traffic would flow in those situations. So if anybody has a project that they're interested in doing a micro simulation to understand alternatives, please contact us. We have the ability.
Mark, is there an environmental component to that? I mean, I assume it gives you traffic flow information.
Yeah.
Is there any corresponding emissions?
There's not. There's actually an extension you can buy that does have that.
Okay.
But I think combined with our GIS and our model, I think we have the capability already. It just wouldn't be all neatly packaged into one software. So I think with our different softwares that we have, we'd be able to get the same information.
All right.
Sorry, could that also be for street side improvements or say a bus?
I believe so. It does.
Transfer area, whatever, something more significant?
It does account for pedestrians and I think bicyclists on the program. So if you were to design in a pullout, let's say, and it got the bus out of traffic so you could have traffic continue flowing, I think you could model something like that.
We can, yeah.
Which, I think it's an interesting facet of the software that might help us make a case for more transit pullouts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Moving down to our final category. Category 500 is technical assistance and support. This is really kind of a catch-all category in our local and state assistance here. Notice 501, the subtasks have been reduced somewhat, and that was really because they were a bit redundant in the past. The same with 502, the statewide and federal assistance. 503 has changed a little bit. This is primarily in response to the new transportation reauthorization. We no longer have transportation enhancements, safe routes to school, scenic byways. These are all kind of under the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP program now. So now we have TAP in here rather than those other subcategories. Moving along, very small change to 506.1. I believe it was planning assistance to coast in the past. Now it's planning assistance to regional transit providers, so that we could account for C&J and Wildcat also. Complete streets and livability. This was included in here. There's been a big complete streets and livability push by federal highways, and I think also locally it's coming up. We want livable communities. People have a higher quality of life. With a community that you have multiple modes that you can access services and so forth. So this is really aimed at bicycle and pedestrian planning, multi-use and recreational trail planning. And our final task is the intermodal transportation planning and integration. This is where we capture the passenger freight rail planning, the aviation planning, which is connectivity to, or connections to airports, not planning airports, and port planning, which again is connections to ports, not planning ports. Help?
Yes, back up on the transit agency report.
Yep.
Dealing with the, it's kind of hard to read it from here.
I can zoom in a little bit if you like.
Down, bring the screen down.
Down?
Yeah,
Transit agency?
Transit agency support?
Yeah. regional transit providers.
Yep.
That would be the coast and the UNH, and anything in there about surveys or information provided as far as the inspection and maintenance of the fleets. I noticed that we had some problems down in Boston where the frames of the buses were falling apart. Whether or not we should have something in there that Brad would bring this to the forefront of the commission, along with his other ills.
Our role, I guess, we have a regional advisory capacity is our role. I believe that transit operators have maintenance requirements and reporting requirements already to the Federal Transit Administration, and that is included with their grant funding. It's a stipulation of receiving funds from the Federal Transit Administration. And our activities, I guess, at the Planning Commission are limited to planning. So we could assist with planning schedules, perhaps, for maintenance. But I think Coast, Wildcat, C&J, very robust maintenance activities and a very thorough maintenance program that they implement, because they do have strict reporting requirements and safety requirements for their transit agencies. Correct me if I misspoke anywhere there, please.
No, we in the past, I would say 20 years, we've really progressed, and I think you have three of the probably best maintained fleets in the region, in those three fleets, and that's in large part thanks to the investments that have been made either at the local, regional, or state level. We do go through audits every 3 years. That our maintenance programs are part of that audit, and we continue to do well in those audits. And I know that the other properties do as well. Speaking for Coast, we dedicate tremendous resources to making sure that those buses are looked at nightly based on the driver reports that come back. So.
All set, Bill?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to move down to the budget now, just to give folks a sense of what we're working with for funding in this cycle. Cynthia, did you want to address this? Okay. So I guess right off the bat, I'd like to say that our federal highways planning funds are level to what they were in the last cycle, which we're very happy about. We are going to spend down our entire allocation of funding from the last UPWP cycle. We got an awful lot of work done in the last UPWP cycle, and so we're really excited about getting level funding. We think it's going to allow us to achieve a lot of our goals. Our FTA funding, our planning funds that come from the Federal Transit Administration, are up slightly over what they were in the past. I believe that they're up $15,000 or $20,000 a year, and that's included in here in this line item. We also receive $100,000 in state planning and research funds, SPR. That is allocated to every metropolitan or every regional planning commission in the state. That's something that Hampshire DOT has agreed to provide us with. So I'm going to get down here to the breakdown of our our costs here for each of the categories. New Hampshire DOT asks us to budget to the category level, so we are not budgeting to all those tasks within the categories. We have some flexibility in where we dedicate that funding within those categories, but between categories we have to have a target. So From this past year, or from this past UPWP cycle, we were able to hone in on our percentages a little bit. So for our administration, it has gone up slightly. We're up to about 14% of our total funding, or our total personnel costs are now dedicated toward administration. Category 200, we actually have a slight drop in the category. The first year is 23%, the second year is 21%. I believe these are down from roughly 26%. We did a lot of work in this last UPWP cycle to make our procedures more efficient, and I think we're going to see some of that, and that is why these have been reduced a little bit. The first year is a little bit higher because we believe we'll be finishing up the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update. It's our long-range transportation plan, and we probably won't need quite so many funds in that second year. Our goal is to get it done in the 2014 fiscal year. Category 300 is staying about the same. I think we had budgeted a little bit less for it in the last UPWP cycle, but we're putting more effort into our public outreach, our public involvement procedures, and also our meetings. We're trying to be more thorough with actually providing information, visualizations for the meetings. So it's taken a little bit more time than it did in the past, and we think this is about the right number. Category 400, we had budgeted much lower last time for data collection. We undertook a serious data collection effort in the last UPWP cycle, or I guess I should say the current UPWP cycle, and we were really up about 30% of our total funding went into this data collection effort. This was to generate baseline levels of data for, or to help us do our planning a little bit better. Kind of goes hand in hand with the project portfolio. We want to collect some meaningful data so we can make better decisions when we're planning. And once it's into the GIS system, it makes it a lot easier for us to do that and to maintain it. So it's not up at 30%. It's about 25% each year. And we think that we can achieve our data collection efforts with about that much of our time. It's going to be very important to us to maintain these data sets, and I think we're going to have to work with communities to figure out something that works for everybody to maintain those data sets. We're very happy to have those, and we think that the bulk of the work is already taken care of because we've collected the baseline data, and now we're just maintaining a lot of these data sets. In category 500, has gone down a little bit, down to 21%, and the second year is 24%. Gets a bump in the second year because we pretty much shifted that funding from the 200 category for updating our metro plan to the 500 category so we can start implementing the metro plan in that second year. We hope to work with communities and do our best to start achieving some of those goals we're going to outline within the metro plan. And so that's basically our budget for the 2 years. We have $433,000 allocated to personnel costs, about $50,000 non-personnel costs, and that's memberships, training, transportation, to meetings, purchasing equipment. We need to get a number of pieces of equipment. Our plotter's been down for a little while and some other things, so there may be some contribution coming out of here. And then we have the total budget for the 2 years listed here at the bottom. And it's about $964,000 for the 2 years, $65,000 for the 2 years. The last thing I'd like to, a couple of things I'd like to get to, just to finish up here, I'll try to be brief. I've provided a list of accomplishments from our last UPWP cycle. It's a pretty long list. I won't go over everything, but we're proud of the work that we've done. There may be a few changes to this, but it will be included in the final draft of the document. The other thing I wanted to just note is that we've received a few comments, actually only from DES and Federal Highways. We had a review of our scope of work with Federal Highways and DOT on Tuesday, I believe. That went very well. There were a number of technical edits, but really nothing substantive. So we're very happy about that. And so if you look throughout the document, a number of these comments, and for the federal highways comments, I have included how they've been addressed within the document. So these will be included as appendices. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Coast is in the budget.
Oh, yeah. Coast is in the budget. There's a section of the document that called Other Transportation Planning Activities. And this outlines our funding that is not included within our UPWP budget, but they are transportation planning activities within the region that are outside of our budget. So there's a number of things. This is FTA 5307 funding, it's planning funds from Coast. It basically outlines the funding for each year, 100,000 total at the bottom here, but it's roughly 100,000 in planning for each fiscal year. Two other, we have this project, the 3-region park and ride study that we're still working on. And we have 2 108 corridor studies. There's a Newmarket, basically a Newmarket to the southern end of Dover study that we think is one portion of it. And we also wanted to include a corridor study for the Dover to Rochester area. There's been a lot of job development along the 108 corridor, especially in the Rochester Granite Business Park. We expect more jobs to be added to that area. There's heavy traffic on that area. I guess the land use is kind of a strip style land use along a lot of 108 through Somersworth, into Rochester and Dover. And we think it really justifies a corridor study. And this is, kind of looks back to the exit 10, Spalding Turnpike, and also the U alternative, which was basically a complete streets kind of idea with bus pullouts, sidewalks, really gave a more multimodal look to 108. So we want to look at that again. We think it's time to really investigate that. There are some traffic issues and some safety issues along that corridor. So we have included this in our UPWPs.
Congestion.
Yeah, congestion is a huge one. Some of the roads you can back up. I think the Blackwater intersection you can back up towards Dover about a quarter or half mile at times and take a couple of cycles to get through the lights. I've definitely sat there a few times in the past. So it's basically a summary of the UPWP.
No more questions?
Just real quick, Mark?
Yep.
Unlike comments received from FHWA, it says, I would consider who?
I can put, that was Lee Levine. I can put his name on there, certainly already. So.
I was just wondering who did it.
Yeah. And I literally did throw these together this morning. We got them at 3:45 yesterday afternoon, so I haven't had a time to format them and make them look pretty yet. So I will be doing that before they go into the final draft.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, Mark, you're going to be addressing the Transportation Improvement Program, Amendment 1?
Yep. I think I can go over this pretty quickly because, again, we've already gone over this in a previous policy meeting. Just going to make a quick run through of the projects. We received one comment also, and I'll talk about that. The first project we have here is the parent project for the Durham to Newmarket bike shoulders. This project is basically being added back in to the State Transportation Improvement Program because it was not included initially in the list of projects. And so all this is putting this project back into the TIP. This project, just clarify, holds the engineering and right-of-way funding for the Phase A and B of the project. So the engineering and right-of-way acquisition are done through this phase. The other two phases are really the construction phase of the project. UNH Bus Livability, this is a group project. There are 3 different grants included within the UNH Bus Livability. There's a study of the transit facility, or excuse me, the train station expansion, a bike kiosk, and also, I believe, connectivity to a bike or to a bus stop, improving sidewalk connectivity for pedestrians. The third project here, this one is new on the list. Brad made a comment that it made a lot of sense. They were awarded funding for 2 paratransit or ADA paratransit vehicles to the tune of $135,000. I believe you're advertising in April? Or soon?
Yes.
As soon as this is approved.
This is good.
Yeah, to acquire those buses. New Hampshire DOT had included this project in the original amendment. They explained it to us that it was actually funding that was all going to Nashua. Apparently, that's not true. It's group funding for Federal Transit Administration 5309 capital and bus facilities. It includes that $135,000 that was awarded to Coast for the purchase of 2 buses. So this is now included in the document, or in the amendment for our region. And the last new project, it was again another oversight. New Hampshire DOT, or in the list that we had received, and this is a statewide interstate maintenance pavement program, essentially, that's being added back in. It's a programmatic project, statewide, and it allows, I believe, the districts to do their annual paving, New Hampshire highways. And we also have a new project, again, same situation, wasn't added into the original STIP, it's just being added in, it was an oversight. So statewide CBI, which is complex bridge inspection. A very important project in our program in New Hampshire. So moving down, nothing else on the amendment has changed. I can run through them quickly, or if folks don't have any questions about them, because they haven't changed, I can hold off on doing that. I don't know what the will
Any questions
of the committee.
I guess not, Mark.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so this is essentially Amendment 1. I think we've addressed the comments that we've received from RAD. Yeah, we don't see any problems with it from our end, I guess, the regional end.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. No other questions or comments? Going to move on to the third item on the public hearing. Oh, excuse me. Yep. The 2015 to 24 New Hampshire 10-year plan scoring criteria. Dan?
Well, I guess I'll throw this back to the committee again. This is, we messed up on the agenda. It shouldn't have been under the public hearing. The process is still developing. So I guess I could certainly go over that right now during the public hearing, but it's not really up for public hearing, I guess.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah. So I could
close the public hearing.
Motion's been made and seconded. We've closed the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. All right, now, under staff communications, Marilyn?
Yes, I just wanted to let everyone know that we're in the process of recruitment for our summer internship program to assist with traffic counts and culvert assessments and other transportation-related activities to help the staff. Myself and one of our interns, Shana Sylvia, we attended the UNH Career and Internship Fair a couple of weeks ago and got a lot of great applicants, and we're also have it out there at UNH's Wildcat job site and other places. So we hope to have them starting in the end of May after school gets out.
Thank you. Let's see, we need a motion on all the action items, which will be 4.2, 2014, 2015, oh, excuse me.
4.1.
Yeah, 4.1, excuse me, Merrill. Draft the MPO minutes of February 15th, 2013. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt them as presented.
Motion, second, motion by Ken.
Second.
Seconded by Bob, or whoever. Bob Jaffin. Marilyn.
I just wanted to make note that I had inadvertently left out Bill Connor as an attendee at that meeting. He was there.
Okay.
I apologize, and so we're going to put him back in there.
Put right back in there, sure.
That way I'll get credit for the all-expense trip to Jamaica.
Sure, yeah, just don't take a Carnival cruise ship. All right, where are we now?
So my motion includes the addition of Bill under the
Okay.
members present.
And so we have to, is that a friendly motion? Friendly amendment?
Well, I'm amending my own motion, so I hope it's friendly.
Okay.
As long as my second agrees.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, excellent.
UNH abstains.
Okay, thank you. Under discussion items, item 5, Mark and Dan.
Wait a minute.
4.2. We need to vote on these still.
Okay, we haven't voted on them. Okay.
Yeah, we just had a public hearing on them.
All right, 4.2, 4.3, we need a vote to approve, and 4.2, 4.3.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, excuse me, I'm
For
sorry.
purposes of discussion, I will make a
Yes.
motion that we adopt the fiscal year 14-15 Unified Planning Work Program Scope of Work and Budget as presented.
Second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor, say aye. Oh, discussion, sorry.
Just in case.
Discussion. Yes.
I just have a comment. I think the staff did an excellent job pulling together the UPWP detail and presenting it. It's very well laid out with lots of information. Good job.
Thank you.
Any other discussions? Not, we'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving down to 4.3, the 2013 through 2016 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment 1.
Mr. Chair, for purposes of discussion, I will make that motion that we approve the item as you just read.
Motion by Ken, seconded by Tom?
Second.
Okay. Discussion, if there is any. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Now, move on to item 5, discussion item with Mark and Dan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are you going to be talking about what's shown as 4.4 now, or is that?
Yes, this is 4.4.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's a discussion, no, it's an action.
It is, yes, it is. Yeah, there was just, it just shouldn't have been part of the public hearing.
Yeah,
but
right,
it's an
right,
action.
yeah.
Okay.
I know it's a little confusing, sorry.
That's okay.
So getting into the 10-year plan, Mark was touching on it before, talking about the GASSET process. What we're doing right now is we're gearing up towards that public involvement process. We are working with the other RPCs, DOT, trying to come up with regional rankings of projects before we send them up to the state. Now, it's been decided with this 10-year plan that we're going to be using decision lens. We've talked about that at previous meetings. And what we're working through right now is coming up with weightings for the criteria that we've discussed at past policy meetings. This might look familiar. It's the criteria that's going into the web application decision lens so that DOT can use that application to rank these projects in a more transparent, more decision-based, goal-oriented way. So I just wanted to show you this, guys, to kind of remind you guys these are the criteria that we're working with. But right now, what we're hopefully approving today, or definitely discussing today, are the different weightings for these criteria. Let's see which one is it. Pull this up. Was this also a handout? Sure.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
No, that's okay. Might help with the light off. Might get a little dark in here though.
Can you make it bigger? Does that help?
Can we'll lose a little bit of. It looks a little bit better. All right. Basically, what this shows are.
You need to enlarge it just a bit, Dan, if you can.
Yeah. Okay.
Why don't you hide some of them?
It's going to be pretty small. It's still too small. Really didn't enlarge it all that much, but what I'll do is I'll give the overview of it, and then we can zoom into certain areas. We can take a look at ours and the DOTs, maybe some of the other region scoring. So basically, what these are, these were developed with DOT. Through tags or through meetings with DOT, staff from RPCs met and actually went through the pairwise rankings in decision lines. Now the pairwise rankings would basically be, take say, the mobility criteria, and then you'd compare that with potential success. Which one's more important? How much more important is this one over the other? So you're taking each criteria and you're comparing it against each other. So you do that for every single pairing. So you compare mobility with potential for success, mobility with safety, mobility with economic development. Each one, you go through this pairwise ranking. And additionally, you go through the sub-criteria, alternative modes against congestion, alternative modes against freight mobility. And when it's all said and done, you end up with these percentages, these weightings. So what we have here is, these are the scores that, well, weightings, I keep using that word. These are the weightings that we came up with through our meeting with DOT. Sorry about that. And this was done going through that process that I was just discussing. We go through those pairwise rankings. This was done with Cynthia, Mark, and Greg. I was on vacation. I would have loved to have gone through the process, but I wasn't able to.
Dan, excuse me.
Sure.
Ed?
Is this the criteria that there was an email sent out that we were supposed to, as commissioners, look over and give our input also? Is this the same criteria?
This is not. There would have been that component in this. However, there was only one TAC member that responded, so I didn't feel that that was a true TAC representation recommendation.
They're referring to the same thing, though, definitely.
Right. Yes.
We were giving the TAC the opportunity to score all of these different criteria.
But TAC did recommend.
At the TAC meeting on March 1st, TAC did recommend for policy to approve these right here, these SRPC staff level weightings.
Ed?
I just wanted to note that not many responded to that request for the information. Is that correct?
That's right. Only one.
One person.
One TAC. Yes.
Thank you.
And I think, being a member of TAC from Barrington, it was discussed that, most people who got it by email, including myself, it was attached to the agenda, and having an idea of what was on the agenda, never opened it up, and and never saw it. So we talked about going forward, making a more concerted effort to make sure, and it was my fault I didn't open the agenda, but, typically we're not asked to respond to anything. So, because it would have been a good vehicle, the folks at TAC would have liked to have participated in it. Even though we didn't disagree with their ratings, we would have liked to be part of that process.
And we listened to that, and we have something we're putting forward to accommodate more involvement.
Yep.
And as we move forward with consequent 10-year plans, hopefully we can go through that exercise at TAC and actually use those clickers. Like some members of policy were able to attend the TAC presentation that Glenn gave.
All right, just what we're trying to do is work through this ourselves and have 2 days at the end of March, the 28th and 29th, or the 29th and 30th, where we're going to be scoring local projects. Staff is going to be scoring local projects, and TAC and other members are invited to come in and help us with the scoring. So that accommodates your concern at the TAC level, and there's going to be, we haven't sent the invites out because we're still trying to process through the data we received this week and the rankings of weightings from DOT at this more project level. So we're still working through that. So Mark, have I said, Dan?
Yeah, just to
clarify. We're still trying to make it work so that we can issue an invitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to clarify what Cynthia was talking about there, we're talking about the weightings for these individual criteria here. What she was talking about is the project level scoring for each one of these criteria. So say for the Durham Newmarket project, there's a certain scale for alternative modes. So for that project, you would have to basically pick a number or whatever the scale is. Does this project strongly impact alternative modes? Things like that. So she's talking about the project level scoring, and what we're looking at right here are the weightings for those criteria.
Brad?
Dan, can you explain alignment and inconsistency at the bottom?
Sure. Alignment and inconsistency is something that Decision Lens calculates based on the people that are doing those pairwise rankings. So for instance, when Cynthia, Mark, and Greg did these for us, what came out for alignment and inconsistency is basically shows how much in line their responses were and how inconsistent their responses were. So in general, they were very much aligned and not inconsistent.
An inconsistency, for example, would be if you chose safety above environment on one, and then you chose environment above network significance, and then you chose network significance above safety. That's inconsistent, because then you're saying on some level environment is above, because environment is, I guess, above network significance. So it's basically, it's referring to, were you consistent? Did you say safety was always the important one, or was it important, and then sometimes you flipped over and said something to the, I guess, contradictory? Thank you.
And I think, Glenn, you could speak to what your consultants have advised you about alignment and inconsistency, what it means.
Yeah, a little bit. Those numbers are actually very good. Some of the things that we talked about, like alignment. Alignment is how, when the people voting, how close it came to the scoring and how much they're seeing the kind of agree with the scoring of it. And if it gets, they're saying if it gets above like 90%, there's probably an issue that maybe somebody is being coerced, or, I mean, no one's opinions are that lined up. So they usually like to say if it's above 90, maybe you got to take a look at it, but between like 60 and 80, it's a real good score for what people's opinion are. Because some of this is very subjective. So the 87 just showed that the RPC people here are all in line with each other, and they're all pretty much on the same page of how they feel about the different weights and criteria. And then the inconsistency is they again same somewhere around between 2 and 10% is it's really, I guess greater than 10%. They kind of wonder if everyone's agreeing with each other. But less than 10% means they're all lined up, they all agree with each other, they're all kind of facing the same direction. So these show that these guys all really are on the same page, working toward the same goals. you know, at least the perception of how they want to see the region grow.
So the folks at DOT were kind enough to take all of the region's data, or mostly everybody's region, or most of the region's data. I don't think everybody went through this process, but they compiled it all in there in this just one sheet. So we can compare it with some of the other regions. Also over to the right over here you have some DOT staff, as well as the DOT commissioners' weightings.
Dan?
Yes.
You got one question, Bill?
Just one quick question. All of this data, the final data, gets forwarded to the GATSIT? Is that? No?
I'd imagine they'll have a look at this. I know this is a new process. I'm not quite sure what discussions DOT has had with GATSIT about decision lens. I'm sure they know about it and have been told about it, so I'm sure they're in the loop about this.
So, and the other thing we received this week is DOT is going to be using for their scoring the commissioner's officer's set of scores. So if you hide the rest of them and you show that one in comparison to ours, you'll get a sense of what we propose to score our projects on and then what will be happening at DOT. Is that accurate, Glenn?
It is.
Yes, okay.
So like Cynthia said, this is a straight comparison of our scores with the DOT commissioner scores, as well as the average all the way to the right. See there.
So when we have an 87% agreement and they only have a 78%, that means we rule?
Yeah.
No?
You get a B.
Yeah, right. Means we still don't get our project, right?
Well, it's
well, you know, that's interesting you said that, because that's what the whole idea is. You said that I didn't get my project, but the idea behind this is that we're scoring the projects based on a criteria. So it's not that we're going to say your project doesn't go or does go. It's how your project scores against all the other projects. So this
I got it. But as I understood from last month, anytime you guys want to overrule it, you do. So the scoring does, in effect, at the end of the day, we spent a lot of time and hours scoring these projects.
That's not
and
true.
Then that's what we were told last month.
But this what we're going to do is this. We're going to use this scoring to create a draft 10-year plan, and we're going to work with the planning commissions to, you know, look at their scoring and our scoring, and come together as a group. But that will be the draft for a 10-year plan. Then as we move forward, there is some decision making. There's certain projects that will be force funded because they're either how far they are within the process already. So that's going to move forward. But what we're ranking is we're going to put forward to the GATSIT. Then through the GATSIT process of hearings, that those lists may change. So this is just initial draft 10-year plan, but over the GATSIT hearings, the project list may change as it goes to the governor, as it goes to the legislative body. There will be changes as it goes through these processes, but we're not going to. I guess we're not going to force projects in because we want them there, unless there's a reason for it. It's either already under development, or already under commitment to do it. But we're not. I guess the idea is we're trying to stay away from going there and say, well, these are our projects. We're going to fund them, and we're not going to fund yours. But what's nice about this is if all the projects in this 10-year plan are scored, and they all have a score, you can see where they fall. And if they do get selected or forced into funding, forced into the project, these will be transparent that it was forced in there. It's not going to be a black box anymore. So that's what the really nice part about this whole process is. Yeah.
So I would just like to emphasize how much alignment there is with, even given all the conversation that we are, if you look through this, there is some significant alignment, you know, with the DOT Commissioner's office and with our region, and just you know, the one that stands out is environment, and but if you look at network significance, we're pretty much the same, and safety and state of repair. So we understand, at both levels, the state and regional level, there's a sense of understanding of what's really important for us. You know, we just have more emphasis on mobility and the environment, and that's reflective of our region.
And not only are we aligned with the DOT commissioners, we're pretty well aligned with the average across the board as well. There are some regions that differ quite substantially from us, but once averaged out, it does look very much aligned. And I'm not sure if you noticed this down here, but the yellow highlight just means that it's the top three criteria for each group.
Dan, I think, you know, clearly what we're doing is spending a lot of time, the DOT and the Commission is spending a lot of time investing a lot of energy into developing a rational framework that we all kind of know the same rules, and it's heartening to see that when we look at it boiled down, we're kind of on the same page. But, you know, in the end, when a 10-year plan goes to the Gasset, we now have a logical storyline how we got to that plan.
Exactly.
But from then on, it does become, I'm not going to say less logical, but it becomes more of a political process once it gets to the Gasset. I mean, Gasset members in the legislature aren't going to be using this system. But the good news is we will have given them a clear, objective, rational storyline of how we got to the list of projects that we did. And hopefully the DOT and the regions are pretty much, they're not always going to be aligned, but very closely in agreement on that list. So that's the good news. Yeah. But then it still is a process of compromise and politics and in a legislative policy framework, which is what it will always be.
It always will be. But the best part, what's nice about this is that it's all transparent in terms of if we do change it, at least it will be transparent what's changed, and we can justify why the change was put in there, you know, so we can document why it was overridden. Or, again, we have to acknowledge this is only a draft. I mean, we can come up with these criteria and rank them, but we know this isn't the whole story behind the projects. And I guess that's what we're trying to identify through the public hearings, that we may not get all the right projects. And the way I look at the public hearings is that we rank as a draft 10-year plan based on this criteria. And if maybe the top projects within this region don't get selected, then the public hearings is an opportunity for this region planning commission to come and say, hey, these are the projects we really want to see in there. They didn't get selected, but here's things that weren't considered in this in this process that we want to put forward, and so this project may be in there. So this is actually, we can leverage those public hearings to maybe get some of the regional projects if they don't make it. If they score high and they are with this criteria, then it's great.
Ken?
Yeah, I think I'd like to make a couple of observations and then a question. I mean, coming from an engineering background and now working in a softer, more social environment, I think it's really important that we're careful about sort of talking about what's objective and what's not. The fundamental, what this is based on is people's opinions. And people's opinions are not objective. But I think what we can say is that just like if you have the spectrum from black to white, everybody is going to have a different point at which they say, now it's black as opposed to gray. So, but at least it's closer. At least, so I think we're moving toward a more objective, toward a more analytical. But the hairs on my neck go up a bit to say that it's objective. The question that I have is the lens. I mean, it's called right. It's called lens. Decision lens. So I wear glasses, for example, and so these lenses work for me. But if Ed were wearing them, they wouldn't work for him, or at least they wouldn't be as clear. And the lens through which the lens that's the basis upon which the evaluation occurs is a lens that has been created by a relatively small number of people. And so it's the commissioner, the staff of DOT, and a subset of the staff of the regional planning commissions. That's sort of the basis. My question is, as we become more familiar with this tool, next year, for example, might there be a way of this group being the lens as opposed to staff, because now it's broader, there's more diversity, but there's more representation of that diversity. Now, it could be that all of that diversity kind of filters out and ends up being pretty much the same. It'd be interesting to see that. But it would seem to me that that is a way of broadening and making the lens more representative of what the general population is, if you will. So I guess my question is this like the first step, and will there be ways to move this in a way that more people can participate in becoming, in determining what that lens actually looks like?
Yeah, the answer is yes. What we'd like to do is have the criteria that we came up forth is kind of keep that criteria fixed, the plan is. But in terms of the scoring and weighting, that every 2 years that will be reevaluated, and the approach how we do that. So there is opportunities to increase it to include more people and a greater number. Absolutely.
I think that would be a good thing, and I think maybe at some point in time we ought to, as a group, perhaps to talk about this again, and if we have a recommendation to make when we come into that second cycle, that we're active participants in that discussion.
Yeah, I just want to put the note out, and thanks to the RPCs and some of the DOT staff too, is that this whole process really, everyone can, I think, agree, we took a big step forward from what we've done for the last 10, 12 years of the 10-year plan. But this has always happened within about an 8 to 10 month period. So this movement started, we were hoping to start last summer, but we didn't start really to September, October, I think, with the 10-year plan lean. And so within the time frame between then and now, this whole process of getting the software, getting the weights, getting it there, all took place in such a very rapid, short time. We are now, this is done fast, and we did the best we could. And what we were really glad to see is that as we did reach out to the planning commissions across the state, that alignment lined up pretty well between the DOT engineers, our commissioner staff, and the regional planning commissions. It was great to see that we're all pretty much on the same page, going in the same direction. So we're pretty confident these are pretty good values. But definitely next round we can definitely open the conversation up of how we can maybe make this more representative and better.
Brett?
This has to be an iterative process, and given the timelines that we have to work under this year, I think that we've done a pretty good job of getting to step one so that we can move forward. I will say, Ken, if you don't mind expanding it again, Dan, you can see what some of the TACs came up with, and they were not aligned at all. And I think that is partially because there may not have been enough time for those groups to kind of talk through this and understand the ramifications of it all. And you know, I'd be nervous if I was North Country Council and I had an alignment of 17.5% and I used those, because that means that I assume that means that they're all over the board and nobody is agreeing on much. So, you know, I will say though, the one thing that is really highlighted to me is in the mobility category and alternative modes. And when you compare our local and global priority scores to the DOT Commissioner's Office, that is the single category that has the widest differentiation between scores. And this is where I get back to, but I wish we had policy at the state DOT that helped guide us a little bit more. But part of the reason why I think that's the case is DOT does not control a lot of the funding for alternative modes. Those funds come directly to your transit agencies, to other alternative modes, and don't actually pass through DOT. So they don't weigh in as much on those as bridges and roads. So I'm not totally surprised at that for any number of reasons, but that is the single category where there is the largest discrepancy?
I think that kind of, excuse me, I think that kind of carries through to the actual scoring scales, actually, you know, as you get on down, where I really thought this was a good process, a good first step, especially the scoring skills. I think we can, or especially these criteria, I think we can work within these criteria. I think some of the scales make it exceedingly difficult to score a project that's not a highway or a bridge project. And we are addressing those internally, but I really do hope that DOT is able to, you know, take a critical look at some of our comments about the actual scoring skills and understand them from, I guess, you know, take a step back and understand them from a complete transportation perspective rather than highways, bridges, preservation, maintenance, because while those are extremely important, they don't do a great job of accounting for a sidewalk project or a bus route or a new bus, something like that, which I think is very important in our region, maybe more so than in some other regions in the state. So definitely great step forward, definitely work to do in the future, and looking forward to the next cycle. We're looking forward to trying it out this cycle and doing some troubleshooting next cycle to get it closer to where it needs to be.
So again, we have our, I guess you call them staff recommended weightings that the TAC did recommend for policy approval. If there was any more discussion or questions, or if you wanted to look more at some of the other figures across the state.
That's right. Brad?
If nobody else had any other comments, I was going to make the motion to approve the tax recommendation.
Motion's been made by Brad, seconded by Bob.
Second.
Just have a comment?
Discussion?
I just wanted to say that I'm considering that this is all a new process. I'm very comfortable with what the planners have come up with. In part because I don't think members of TAC or MPO, whatever, would have had time to get the training needed to use this model. And also, frankly, we're all looking at our own narrower areas compared to the planners that are supposed to be looking at the larger areas. So perhaps that is one of the reasons why some of these scores were a bit odd. So I think if TAC and the MPO gets some training next year and we get brought into the process, that would be great.
Masha?
And I agree with Ken Ortman. I think hopefully in next year or the year after that it becomes more participatory on the part of the member communities, because it shouldn't be a top down in planning. It should be a bottom up. And we represent our communities, and these projects going forward influence the towns and the cities we live in, and we all have our different priorities, and I think it's very important at a regional level that we understand the differences between our communities and the effects that the projects have on them, especially when you have major routes going through your town like Barrington has. What the people of Barrington feel should be done may be quite different than what the Regional Planning Commission thinks should be done, but the people in Barrington have to live with it. So I just think it's really important that we have a more bottom-up approach to some things like this.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to the motion to endorse, and that amendment would be that there is, that we are also requesting that there be a broader participation in the determination of the weighting the next time this process is used.
I'll second. Okay. Amendment's been made and seconded. Comments on the amendment?
I think that we need a little bit more detail to that amendment. Is it going to be another long, drawn-out process for regional planning staff? What are we getting ourselves into? Right now, we're asking DOT to rely on the regional planning, their skills, and then the DOT is vice versa. So when we get into this weighing of the charts, it's that you can't have a regional planning staff trying to figure out the condition of bridges for DOT. DOT doesn't have the skills of the RCP planners. So I think if we're looking for a broader participation by having some sort of a committee or more work for the executive director, that we should have it detailed a little bit more.
Mr. Chair, to the extent that the process that was used to determine the weighting was sort of this clicker, does everybody know sort of what this clicker process is? The intent of my amendment is that rather than it being 3 people clicking these little items from RPC, that it might be 20 from the MPO and another 15 from the TAC. So maybe we have 35 clickers determining the weighting, but that would require no more work on the part of staff. So it just would broaden. Now, and again, maybe after that, people decide that they want to broaden it yet again, but it would seem to me that would be a way of getting a more diverse input without providing any additional work on the part of staff.
Masha.
And I agree with Ken, and those clickers do work they don't take a lot of education, because in Dover we used them as part of a master plan and literally handed up to people at a public session and did basically the same thing. And I just think it's really important, if we're talking regionally, that all the communities have some kind of input. So, and this is why we're here.
Mark.
I guess I'll give the Regional Planning Commission perspective. We have no problem with doing, not this time, not for this cycle, for the next cycle, number one, an educational piece about what each of these criteria mean, because I think that the definitions as given are limited in some situations, and we need to broaden those so that folks can understand the implications of their decisions. And I really don't think it will be a problem we could probably get the entire thing done in a half day. Both the discussion portion of it, we can go through piece by piece and discuss each one as we're going through, and the actual voting. So I think we'd be happy to do that. Not this time. Once again, this is probably 2 years from now that this would be happening in the winter of 2015 or fall of 2014, something like that.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, listening to Bill and Ken, I'm going to have to say I really have a problem with the amendment to the motion. The DOT has already indicated this was a fast track, and that they need to expand it, give them the opportunity to stop telling people what to do. That's just my opinion.
Cynthia?
Yeah, I will echo what Mark said, and what's really important to this, that everybody that wants to use the clicker has to be fully involved in the education part of what alternative mode means and what the definition, and have a conversation so that when you go in and you have this discussion and you're looking at this, you're thinking, what are all the modes of transportation in our systems over here in Strafford, and how does this compare to congestion or safety or putting up guardrails? And so it's really, the process is really simple, but getting to the point where you feel comfortable is really important. And so if you want to vote, I would urge you that it probably should be almost a compulsory, like we went through with this lean process during the fall, where all of Dan represented us, and they talked monthly about all of the categories and had discussions. So we should be doing that too, so that we can have a fully informed voting process, which is, Decision Lens is a collaborative decision-making software package. That's what it is. It sells itself as collaborative decision-making.
Awesome.
we're not talking about taking people off the streets here. We're talking
No,
about
no.
TAC and stuff, which hopefully the members of TAC, most of which are professionals, should easily be educated on or have questions. I mean, we go to meetings monthly. So I think Ken's suggestion was not giving any specifics. It was kind of a general statement saying, you know, going forward, we need to have more involvement from the communities, not that it's any narrow view of what exactly has to be done. I mean, you can read that motion again. I think it was pretty general.
I just feel the need to reiterate that there was the opportunity for TAC involvement in this process too. That was sent out and emailed, and that there was only one response.
Yeah, it was a very, it was not a, I'm sorry, it was not a full public outreach. We're not typically involved, but this is good discussion, because I hopefully going forward that there is more involvement for the communities, and we just don't come in and are kind of spoken to as opposed to included in the process.
Ed?
Yeah, I just think we're overthinking this. This
Well,
is just,
yeah, it's just simple. It was a simple motion.
How long was that, the email survey that went out for the TAC members, how long would that have taken us to complete? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Probably, yeah. As much time as you want to put into it, really, but yeah, I would think within a half hour.
I mean, the amendment is only just so we're included in the process. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not adding any work to the staff. It's not extending. It's only 15 minutes of our time. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, how does everybody feel about the amendment first?
I just have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
You're talking about the email to do the what? To get input?
Scoring criteria.
But
That was sent out for TAC.
Right, but the training involved in actually working with it is a little more involved. But it can be done. I'm not questioning it can be done, but.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'd love to do
Yeah,
the training, because
sure.
that'll make for better conversations here. We're all for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we don't run into a situation like you were talking about,
Yeah,
with
we don't want to
alignment
look
and
like,
consistency issues.
we don't want to look like foreign country.
Okay, let's, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
Okay.
Who was opposed?
Bill, Bob. All right, now we have the motion as amended. Thank you. Any comments, questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, moving right along. Item 6, project update. Greg or anyone else that has something?
Sign it.
Really good.
Sorry. All right, so I just got a few quick project updates for data collection for this upcoming 2013 summer. Traffic counts have been mapped. We've got 107 stations right now. We've got a few requests that came in from Durham, one from Rochester so far. If anybody has any requested counts, feel free to just give us a call and let us know where you want them, and we'll tell you if we can do it, which most likely we can. We've got our interns coming for the summer of 2013 to help us with that. And, we did a tube count test this past week, and about 90% of our tubes were still good for the year, so we don't have to put in a huge order for new ones. So that was good. Culverts. We're going to be doing the culvert assessment again this year. As most of you know, we made it through 5 towns over the last 2 data collection seasons: Somersworth, Madbury, Barrington, Lee, and Rollinsford. All were accepted by the Geological Survey. There are some supplemental structures in those towns that we're going to be going out and getting. And there's some pictures that the Geological Survey requires for New Durham and Northwood in order to get those 2 town reports certified. So right now we've mapped 4 new towns, which we're hoping to get to at least 3 of them this summer, but it remains to be seen how much time we're going to actually have with data collection. Those towns are Newmarket, Rochester, Nottingham, and Durham. So there's 4 new shapefiles that were made, and I'll be reaching out to the towns to meet with you and show you what culverts we're looking to collect, and if you have any other ones that we've missed, we'll feel free to put them in there. In addition to that, we put together this protocol document for the culvert assessment project, so that our interns have a field document they can take with them, and in the field, if they have any questions, they can have something to reference. So that has been endorsed by the Geological Survey as well. It's up on the website. Feel free to take a look. It's under the Services tab in the culvert section. So right now, we're just looking to set up our meetings with towns, and we should be good to go. Hopefully, end of May, something like that. So, nice out. Yeah. Other than that, we are still going to be doing our building permit data collection. We'll be contacting towns for that building permit data for 2012 and adding it to our list of building permits over the last few years. We've been working, as Mark said, on this sidewalk inventory. One of our interns last year did a whole bunch of research for us to get us started. We've got a methodology document that's been started, and I'm trying to get through a protocol document now for that sidewalk inventory, which we're not running into a roadblock, but we're running into some things that we need to really talk about. So I've set up a meeting with T-Square, the Technology Transfer Center at UNH, and we're going to go out and meet with one of their graduate students who actually did a sidewalk inventory in Concord that he's using for his thesis. And he's going to show us how they went out and collected all the ADA design aspects for curb ramps for the sidewalks. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of other attributes that we collect for the walkability, livability end of that project. So we're working on it. We're meeting with T-Squared soon, and I'm hoping to get a protocol document out so that we can actually get out there and start collecting some of this stuff for next collection season. The access management project, we have all of the routes in the region mapped. All of the access points to those state corridors have been plotted. The attribute tables have been filled out. The only field that's missing is site distance, and right now I'm working with District 6 and District 3 to put together a memorandum of understanding for a data transfer system so that they can give us new building permits, new driveway permits and curb cuts, so we can add that to our, we can keep adding it to this working document. Kevin Russell at District 6 is going to come out in the next couple of weeks and go out and do a test quality assurance, quality check run with me, so we can sort of gauge how intensive it's going to be to go out and actually check the data that we've collected. In addition to that, he's going to show us how to collect the site distance information for those major commercial entrances, ones that have large traffic implications. So we're most likely going to be trying to stay away from the largely residential areas, areas that are major traffic generators. So that's where we're going with it at first, and it'll develop as we move a little further along. And so we're in the middle of that right now, and that's about it.
Greg, I got a quick question on the traffic counts. Yep. Are there certain days or weekends that are usually done? And how many days does it usually take to get a full traffic count?
We lay them out on Monday. They stay out all week, Monday through Friday. We check them on Wednesday. So they go out, they lay them on a Monday. On Tuesday, they'll go out and do culverts or whatever data collection that we've got them doing. Wednesday, they'll go out and check to make sure that the counters are still there and they're still working. And then they'll do the same thing on Friday, and they'll collect them. So they'll actually take the tubes off on Friday, come back in, download the data, and then we'll process it.
So we don't do them on holiday weeks, right, just so folks know it. They kind of skew the information.
Yeah. And just a quick note, if there's any requests that come in for traffic counts, the location is really important. It needs to be on a straightaway, preferably a decent distance away from an intersection so there's no queuing that would have a car sitting on top of the tube. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you have any requests, let us know, and we'll do our best to get them out there for you.
I'm looking at the report here, and some of the columns have the gas in them. Does that mean it's been done?
No, it means it's a class count.
Right? Okay.
Yep, vehicle class.
Vehicle class. So it'll be, seeing if it's a tractor trailer truck, if it's a small car.
Oh, I see. Okay, gotcha. Any other questions for Greg? Hearing none. move on to other business. Anyone got
Actually,
anything?
I have one more
I'm
thing I
sorry.
wanted to do for discussion items.
Yeah.
DOT recently sent out our target funding levels for the 10-year plan. I just wanted to, Dan did a little analysis on this. I just wanted to show the information. So annually, I'll just do the total funding available for the 15 to 24 10-year period. These are all the different RPCs in New Hampshire. This is our target funding number. This category, or this column here, shows how much money is currently programmed into the 10-year plan. So, you know, all those projects that are carrying over from the last 10-year plan, this outlines how much funding is actually already programmed. As you can see, we don't have very much. We have 2 projects programmed in there right now. And so this is kind of the important number. This is the net funding available to add new projects to the plan. And our region is doing all right. We're averaging about 4.6 million a year of adding new projects. So that's our target number is roughly 46 million throughout the entire 10-year plan. And I just wanted to show that.
Any questions?
Well, just so the context here, because it really does look like, wow, we're really being shortchanged. But the context then is, this is post Little Bay Bridges. Like, we got this giant slug of money to do Little Bay Bridges, et cetera, that's going on now.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have been inverted. We would be. This is
actually turnpike funding is not included in
not
this,
included
so
turnpike.
that's not included, and neither is the Rochester
thank you.
project.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Under other business, anyone else have anything else? Ken?
I have 2 issues. One is I just wanted to announce, I announced last meeting that the Rochester UNH bus service was going to be initiated. It has been initiated. On the very first run, there were like 15 people almost, real riders, besides people like myself that were riding just to see what was going on. And so it was really nice. To see that, you know, sometimes when you start a new service, there just aren't very many people because they don't know about it. And I think UNH did a great job of getting information out to their staff and whatnot. So hopefully the ridership will continue to increase, but Rochester's very pleased with what's going on. The other thing is, at the last meeting, I had asked a question about, see if we could get some information about why the projected cost for the Rochester Park and Ride had increased so much. Could we make sure that on for the next agenda that there's some information about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. We are really happy with the Rochester route. It's doing very well. I think it's approaching 50 riders. And we're surprised that the percentage of students is higher than we thought. We thought exclusively faculty staff, but we're seeing a surprising percentage of students, a surprising percentage of students using it to get from Durham to Lee and the Market Basket Press. So we're really happy to see that growing well. We also wanted another quick update. We do hope that come May we'll have our real-time transit information available, which is a CMAQ-funded project. The consultant's working to give us a beta turn on before end of semester, so we're very excited about that. And if I may ask one question of the staff.
Go ahead, sure.
I haven't heard any word about CMAQ round. Like, where are we on that? Has there been any announcement from DOT?
Yes, we're having a meeting March 29th.
Okay.
And at 9 a.m. So I imagine if you're a CMAQ recipient, you may want to attend the meeting. Usually recipients are there.
It's a CMAQ committee meeting, or
it's
just?
It's a CMAQ committee meeting, yes.
Okay. Can I just ask that DOT let at least the transit agencies know about that meeting? So, thank you.
Yeah, it was just informal.
Okay.
Is your email address still the same, and is this the person we should be inviting?
Okay.
So it wasn't informal, what I learned.
No. Cynthia, CMAC stands for, I know it's not CPAC, but.
Congestion mitigation and air quality, and that's
Okay.
a funding category that UNH, Coast, a lot of us have depended on over the years for everything from capital transit fleet to subsidizing the startup of the Rochester service to the real-time transit that I just talked about. So our region is very successful.
Brad?
And thank you for reminding me, Steve, what I was going to say. There was a note on the side about the effects of sequestration on New Hampshire DOT, and they're for transit, they're not significant, which is good for us. We don't have as much flexibility as some other folks who get all the money. But what has happened with MAP 21 is a lot of our capital programs have gone away. So CMAC is critically important to somebody like Coast now to be able to continue to replace our fleet, for example. We just don't have the discretionary programs that there used to be, which that was our capital program, or the discretionary program. So it's I'm glad to hear that the CMAC committee is meeting and look forward to that, but I expect that the funding won't be sufficient for the state to replace even just our bus fleet, let alone get into any other projects. But the other thing that I was going to mention is that the continuing resolution that's being discussed in Washington right now does not fully fund MAP 21, and that is, for us, sequestration. We had a lot of questions about that. Seem to have managed to pass through that okay, although response from the federal government is definitely slowed, we've noticed. But if the continuing resolution doesn't fully fund MAP 21, then we have pretty immediate concerns over funding our operation beyond probably January of next year. So we continue to work in this fairly volatile environment that we have no assurity in being able to maintain our operation in. So.
Yeah. Anything else?
Chair, would you entertain a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, we do have to cover Citizens Forum. I realize there's no one here from the citizenry, but now we'll accept your motion.
To adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Ken, seconded by anybody? Okay, Tom, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. There. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.